Rocky, the dog who just needed a chance. Rocky was a beautiful little dog, a small bundle of joy with bright, expressive eyes and a coat that shimmered under the light. His tail never stopped wagging, and his boundless enthusiasm for life made him impossible to ignore. At just 4 years old, he was full of energy, eager to play, and always ready to shower anyone he met with love. His playful barks and cheerful demeanor made him a favorite among the shelter staff, who adored his lively spirit and affectionate nature. But despite all his wonderful qualities, there was one mystery about Rocky that left everyone at the shelter completely puzzled. He simply couldn't keep a home. He had been adopted not once, not twice, but an unbelievable 7 times. Each time, a loving family would take him in, seemingly thrilled to give him the forever home he deserved. Yet, within just a few weeks, Rocky would be returned, leaving the staff bewildered and heartbroken. What was even more confusing were the reasons given by each family. One said he was too energetic, while another complained that he was too lazy. Some insisted he was too affectionate and always demanded attention, while others felt he wasn't affectionate enough. One adopter simply said, "He's not a good fit," without any further explanation. None of it made sense. How could the same dog be perceived in such drastically different ways? To the shelter staff, Rocky was perfect. He was fun, loving, and full of life. He had never shown signs of aggression, nor did he seem to have any unusual habits. And every time he was returned, he greeted the staff with excitement, bouncing around as if happy to be back. But why did so many families struggle to keep him? A determined volunteer steps in. Emma, a young volunteer who had been working at the shelter for months, was determined to get to the bottom of the mystery. She had always loved Rocky, watching him race around the shelter yard, laughing at his goofy antics and enjoying his boundless energy. She simply couldn't believe that such a lovable dog could be anything but a joy to have at home. So she came up with a plan. "Let me take him home for the night," she suggested to the shelter director. "Maybe if I observe him outside the shelter, I'll understand what's going on." It seemed like the perfect idea. That evening, Emma carefully placed an excited Rocky into his carrier and carried him to her car. As she drove home, she glanced at him in the rearview mirror. His tail was wagging so fast that his entire body seemed to vibrate with excitement. "You're just happy to go for a ride, aren't you?" she said with a chuckle. Rocky let out a happy bark in response. Despite her confidence, Emma felt a little nervous. What if there really was something wrong with Rocky? What if, away from the familiarity of the shelter, he became a completely different dog? Had all those families been right after all? A night of discovery. When she arrived home, she took things slow. She gently placed the carrier on the floor, opened the door, and stepped back. She wanted Rocky to explore at his own pace, without pressure. Instead of hovering, she busied herself tending to her other pets, her old Labrador, Charlie, and her cat, Lizzie, while keeping an eye on Rocky from a distance. At first, he was cautious, sniffing the air and twitching his ears as he assessed his unfamiliar surroundings. But after a few minutes, his uncertainty vanished. Suddenly, he was darting around the room, sniffing furniture, jumping onto cushions, and barking happily at nothing in particular. Emma smiled. This was the Rocky she knew, joyful, energetic, and full of life. Everything seemed perfectly normal. She let out a relieved sigh. Maybe all those families had simply misunderstood him. Maybe they weren't prepared for a dog with his level of enthusiasm. Perhaps they had expected a quiet lapdog and were surprised to find themselves with a whirlwind of energy instead, but she was determined to dig deeper. Unraveling the truth. The next morning, Emma arrived at the shelter, determined to uncover the truth. She pulled up Rocky's file, scanning the list of his previous owners. As she skimmed through the names, a thought struck her. Was there a common thread connecting all these failed adoptions? She decided to find out. Taking a deep breath, she began calling Rocky's former families one by one. Some calls went unanswered, but others were picked up, and soon a pattern began to emerge. Each of Rocky's previous homes had one crucial thing in common. They all had other pets. This revelation hit Emma like a lightning bolt. Could it be that Rocky simply didn't get along with other animals? Determined to confirm her suspicions, she continued speaking with his former owners. One family hesitated before finally admitting that Rocky had attacked their elderly dog multiple times, seemingly unprovoked. Another adopter, sounding equally regretful, confessed that Rocky had relentlessly chased their two cats around the house, his playful curiosity quickly escalating into aggression. Another family described how he had clashed repeatedly with their existing dog, with fights growing worse despite all efforts to train and separate them. And suddenly, everything clicked into place. Rocky, for all his sweetness and love toward humans, simply did not tolerate other animals. A second chance at change, Emma now faced a choice. She could let Rocky go back up for adoption, but this time with a warning: he needed a pet-free home. Or she could try something more challenging. She could try to train him. Could she teach him to coexist with other animals? Was it even possible? Some dogs, no matter how much effort you put in, simply can't change their nature. But Emma wasn't ready to give up on Rocky just yet. She started small. Controlled exposure. She let Rocky see Charlie and Lizzie through a safety gate, allowing him to observe them without the risk of an attack. At first, Rocky barked aggressively, lunging at the gate, his small body trembling with frustration. But over time, something changed. His barking became less frantic, his lunges grew weaker, and one evening as Lizzie wandered into the same room, Rocky didn't growl or snap. Instead, he simply watched her pass by, then turned his attention back to his ball. It was a breakthrough. Encouraged, Emma introduced him to Charlie. Rocky stiffened at first, unsure of what to do. But instead of attacking, he cautiously sniffed Charlie, his tail giving a hesitant wag. And then, as if years of instinct suddenly melted away, Rocky bounced playfully in front of Charlie, inviting him to chase. Emma held her breath. Charlie responded, nudging Rocky, and in an instant, the two were playfully running around the room, wrestling like old friends. Even Lizzie the cat curled up beside them, giving Rocky a few friendly licks. Rocky had done it. He had changed. A forever home. When the time came to return Rocky to the shelter for adoption, Emma realized something. She didn't want to let him go. Over the past few weeks, he had become part of her family. He had worked so hard to overcome his struggles, and now she couldn't imagine life without him. So, she made the best decision of all. She adopted Rocky herself. Because sometimes, all a dog needs is patience, understanding, and a little bit of love to become the best version of themselves. Rocky had proved that. And Emma knew she had made the right choice, because Rocky wasn't just a good dog, he was a great one.